So we're talking about the economy, and Trump has his people out attacking the Fed. I want to give you guys the latest, and this is what's going on today. From the Trump people, it says, Trump advisor says New York Fed economists should be, quote, disciplined, for publishing study on tariffs. So if you put out numbers they don't like, they want to punish you, basically. That's from Financial Times. Bloomberg has it at Hassett attacks New York Fed for study on tariff burden hitting the U.S. So let's go over what they're saying, and we'll go over some numbers with you. So first, this is Hassett.
What we've been doing is by congressional district. We've been looking at how much more money people have to spend because they're buying the normal bundle of goods that they need to survive, and how much money people have gained in the last year because incomes have gone up because of all of our great policies, which are causing a business boom. And almost without exception, when you go look at it, incomes are up way more than the cost of living. And that's the real wage gain that this silly Fed study neglects to mention. And so the bottom line is that Trump policies are meant to onshore production and create jobs. And those jobs that we're creating are not for, Jeff Bezos. They're for the people who didn't have a job before. And so they're by definition the people at the bottom. And our policies are working. They're very clearly working in the data.
So according to Hassett, you all have a job, you're all rich, and they are not helping Bezos, they're helping you people at the bottom. So you should celebrate, right? And the fairly silly Fed study, don't pay attention to them, you're all rich. Okay, that's from Hassett. This was actually out of Bloomberg today. It says unprecedented jobless boom. Jobless boom. Test limits of US economic expansion. And what we're talking about this year is, you may see GDP numbers go up, but you won't see job numbers go up. Basically, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Talk about K-shaped economy. You can also talk about T-shaped economy where the rich stay rich and the poor just drop off. Let me show you the numbers here, what it says. The U.S. economy is creating plenty of wealth, so there's certainly money in the USA, right? It's just not creating many jobs, okay? And it was very interesting when Hassett's like, well, it's not really for Jeff Bezos. It's for all you people at the bottom. Don't you see? We have the numbers, don't you see? Everything's going up. GDP is awesome. You're so rich. Forecasters expect Friday, so we're going to get a GDP report. Friday's report on gross domestic product to show the economy expanded 2.7% in 2025. A solid pace by any standard for a developed country. Here's the big but, though. But employment barely grew. And the combination is drawing comparisons to the infamous jobless recovery of the early 2000s that followed the tech bubble and collapse. And you can look at this chart here. It's interesting. You have the yellow line and the black line. You can see it for yourself. Yellow is the US real GDP, right? So you can see that's ticking up a bit. So that would be right about there. If I get my number on that, 2.7. And then you have the non-farm payrolls 12-month change, and that's starting to decline. You can see right there. And that's sort of what we're talking about here is, sure, GDP numbers may go up, but not necessarily jobs. And then the other thing that's pumping up the GDP numbers is all this investment into AI and data centers and that kind of stuff, which is basically designed to replace jobs. So it's going to get really ugly out there. I'm just telling you the truth on this stuff. And then when they were talking about tariffs, you got to hear what it has to say about this.
A study by the New York Federal Reserve claims 90% of the tariff burden is being shouldered by U.S. firms and consumers, but the White House disagrees. Joining us now, White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. This will be, Kevin, good to see you. This will be a continuation of a discussion we had yesterday with Ambassador with our trade representative, Jameson Greer, and we talked about whether something's regressive, but we'll try to get into all of this. And
really the discussion is essentially when we talk about tariffs is who pays the tariffs, one, and then basically what percentage of your income are tariffs. First, let me show you Greer, what he refers to, and we're talking about, is this a burden on you or not to pay the tariffs?
But the other piece to keep in mind, too, is it's not regressive. Most consumption in America is done by the wealthiest people. So the idea that it's somehow regressive is just wrong. And by the way...
Perfect. A tax on wealthy people. That ought to get unanimous approval in the Hakeem Jeffries house.
What one would think. But again, these tariffs aren't making their way down to consumers anyway.
So basically, he's lying. I'll just put it long story short. First is the study that they were talking about today is U.S. businesses and consumers pay 90% of the cost, talking about the tariff. So this is nothing shocking or anything like that. But this is really damaging to them because all the time they come out on TV and say, no, 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 it's China paying the tariffs, not you. But then, the Fed can figure out like, okay, what percentage is paying the tariffs? That's 90%. The whole regressive thing is basically the less income that you have. So the lower you are in the economic scale, when the tariffs hit, you're paying a higher portion of your salary to pay these fees. It's a larger expense for you. Simplest way to describe it is a $20 hamburger for you, or 20 or 30 or whatever it is, if it goes up in price, is a larger portion of your salary than, say, for Jeff Bezos. For them, or Elon Musk, whatever, for them, it's nothing to them, right? 20, $30 is nothing. A $10 increase is nothing to them. But to someone who's really struggling, that adds up very, very quickly, right? That's what we're talking about here.
We saw an inflation number last week, 2.4%. If it is being shouldered by U.S. firms and consumers, U.S. firms are eating some of it, or consumers it's being offset by something else, whether it's lower gas prices or something else, because just in the numbers themselves, that doesn't hold water. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the paper is an embarrassment. It's, I think, the worst paper I've ever seen in the history of the Federal Reserve System. The people associated with this paper should presumably be disciplined, because what they've done is they've put out a conclusion which has created a lot of news that's highly partisan, based on analysis that wouldn't be accepted in a first semester econ class. The bottom line is that if you're wondering like who bears the burden of something, of a tariff, then you remember, Joe, you got supply curves, demand curves, you shift them around, you got consumer surplus, you got producer surplus, and then you look and see how it all works out in the end. And they're basically only looking at changes in prices. So they're assuming that quantities don't.
Okay, but that's what we're looking at, is changes in prices, who pays the tariffs, and also where the money is going. So this is what it says. It says U.S. business and consumers pay 90% of the tariffs costs, right? And this is a chart here. Foreign companies are not eating U.S. tariffs. And you can see the percentages here, and it depends on which month you look at. So if they want to argue about, the exact numbers, they can. But long story short, U.S. importer, right? So if you're bringing in goods into the country, you're going to pay the tariffs on this stuff, and then likely you're going to pass it on to U.S. consumers. It's really not that complicated. I'm just putting it up there because when you go over the Trumpy and the Hassett stuff, they try to gaslight you and make it sound like that, we got supply and demand curves this way, and you can move a bunch of numbers this way, that way, and they try to act like someone's cheating you in some way. But really, it's the Hassett people, the people are cheating you. Like if they're not speaking to you clearly,
don't move at all. But guess what? Quantities did move at all. So the basic theory of President Trump's tariffs is that we're importing stuff from China, but we got producers in the U.S. that make the same stuff, maybe at a slightly higher price. If we bring the stuff home, create the demand at home, then that will hurt China and drive up wages in the U.S., and American consumers will be better off. So what have we seen? Prices have gone down. Inflation is down over time. Import prices dropped a lot in the first half of the year and then leveled off, and real wages were up $1,400 on average last year, which means that consumers were made better off by the tariffs. And so consumers couldn't have been made better off by the tariffs if this New York Fed analysis was correct. It's really just an embarrassment. But I can't imagine who signed off on it, frankly.
But in the best case,
it's so hard to go through every single thing that he says because he just lists off as many stuff as he possibly can and then hope you don't understand it, which that's kind of their strategy. But basically, they're just trying to say that you're all rich, and I guess we are attacking China and we hate China, so therefore just trust us. I mean, that's what all it boils down to. They just try to get you with their emotion. Well, guys, but we have to beat China. We have to beat China. And a lot of stuff that they say also doesn't really make sense. If like they're claiming that we're going to make stuff in USA and raise wages, but by definition, that would probably be higher cost of stuff in USA. So I don't quite get how that's going to lower prices if for example, let's say we move all factory work from China and put it in USA and then pay American wages and such. I don't know how suddenly all of the costs are going to go down. I just don't see that happening. Nor do I see, all these massive jobs coming back. That's why I showed you guys before with the jobless boom. And this is also a big issue which you have to talk about with people, is that the Trump people always try to say, someone stole your job, but a lot of jobs are lost due to automation. It's just the reality of it. They're also attacking the Fed because they really want to lower rates so them and their buddies can borrow yet more money and throw at the data centers to replace you even more and faster. The Fed minutes reveal little appetite for rate cuts, right? So this is upsetting them. Again, they want to borrow more, get interest rates down to zero, overheat the economy, great financial crisis kind of things, roll back stuff before, so where everything's deregulated. Then you got some people actually talking about hiking possibly. Fed minutes show several officials nod to rate hike scenario. So in the easiest way to talk about any of this stuff, guys, is I just say, hey, you tell me, do you feel like you're richer than you were before? Are jobs just falling out of the sky that you get so many job offers that, you're just like, oh my God, I just don't know what to do. There's so many jobs, right? Or is it hard to find work? It's better to talk to people on the ground. That's what is frustrating about the Hassett people, whatever. Like, he just tries to gaslight you and say, oh, well, someone's manipulating the numbers and you're all rich, right? We're helping people to the bottom. But just ask people on the ground. They'll tell you the truth on this stuff. And I can show you guys what I'm looking at, but I also want to hear from you. So that's my thoughts on this. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you all in the next video.